Next, we're going to turn to positive relationships. We all know this. We have a basic need to be seen, to be heard, and to be met. The mere presence of a caring adult reduces the effects of stress and helps to reduce negative emotions. But we need to be mindful that we're now forced in our relationship with family members. It's a new social contract. In our approach to social and emotional, and we ask people to build a family charter. It doesn't require a lot of training. Just have a conversation about how you want to feel at the dinner table. Just go around and say, how do you want to feel this week? How do you want to feel this weekend? What can we do to support the feelings that we all want to have more of? And I just want to share that our research in schools shows that 50% of teachers say they have strong relations with their students, which is not enough, but only 34% of our students agree. So that's 2/3 of our nation's youth that are saying they don't feel they have a strong relationship with an adult in their school. For those of you who've read my book or know my story, I was blessed in life. I had parents who loved me, but they were not there for me. They had their own challenges. My mom had a lot of anxiety. My father had a lot of anger. They were trying to figure out their own ability to regulate, sort of. And when I was struggling as a child from my own trauma and from bullying, and I had terrible anxiety problems, eating disorder even at one point in my life, there was one adult there for me. He was my Uncle Marvin. And he was that compassionate emotion scientist. He was that person who just said, hey, Mark, what's going on? And what I want to say here that he did that no one else did was he didn't try to shift me out of my feelings. He wasn't saying, why are you so stressed and why are you so anxious and you shouldn't be that way. He just listened. He just cared. Let me ask you, do you have someone in your life who is your Uncle Marvin? Who might that person be? Have you connected with them during these difficult times? Have you communicated with them? And importantly, for whom are you an Uncle Marvin? Who are you providing that unconditional love and support for? Just take a moment. Think about who might you reach out to? Who might you give your attention to? Because oftentimes when we're going crazy in our own heads from stress and anxiety, a great strategy is just reaching out to someone else and taking care of them. The next area that we're going to jump into is managing our thoughts. You know that 40% of our well-being has to do with our outlook on life, right? Our negative self-talk often starts early, often by others who define our reality for us, right? Think about that. You know, when I asked you that question earlier, a lot of you said your parents. You learn your unhelpful strategies from your parents. I'll give you mine. So my mother, whenever she was saying, oh, I'm having a breakdown, and lo and behold, I'm 50 years old now, and about 3 weeks ago, I was having just completely overwhelmed, and I'm like, oh, I'm having a breakdown. I'm like, oh shit, there goes mommy again. So all of us, right, think about this. We have learned these strategies. We have practiced these strategies for me 45, 50 years of my life. So part of healthy emotion regulation is going to be changing the conversation that we have with ourselves. And that means we're going to have to do a little bit of unlearning and then replace that with the stuff that's going to help us have greater self-compassion and manage our emotions more effectively. Because you can't just tell someone to stop thinking that way. It doesn't work. So with the stress that we're having with COVID-19, what's happening in our communities, right? It's that dangerous trio. It's unpredictable, it's uncontrollable, it feels like it's going to last forever. But take into consideration Eckhart Tolle's quote, right? You can't cope with the future. You can only deal with the present, right? Chronic stress is when we're sensing danger around the clock. It makes us irrational. We've seen this on television, right? People spraying people, gargling with Clorox, panic buying up toilet paper, saying mean or hurtful things, right? And there's another big problem with this. Our brains lie to us. It's amazing. Our brains literally lie to us. So when we don't have accurate information, our brain makes it up. The best example I have from my life is turbulence. I fly a lot, but I get anxious every time I get on a plane, like, and my cousin is a pilot for, and I said to him, Rich, like, I can't, blah, blah, blah. And he said to me, Mark, didn't you know there's never been an accident from turbulence? I'm like, really? No, I didn't know that. Wow, that's interesting. I was basing all my anxiety on a lack of information. Now, every time I get on a plane and I feel like it's going crazy and it's whatever, it's raining or there's some turbulence, I just say, Mark, there's never been an accident from turbulence. And I'm like, oh, okay, give me another glass of wine. No, just kidding. So we're going to focus today on positive self-talk and positive reappraisal. Saying encouraging words in our head about ourselves and the world around us. It helps, by the way, to refer to yourself in the third person. So for example, oftentimes I'm like, Mark, or I'm going to lose it. What we say to ourselves is, wait a minute, Mark, you're supposed to be the feelings master. You can get through this. So here's what I'm going to ask you to do right now. Take a moment and think about one or two of the phrases that you say to yourself in these difficult times that might not be helpful. Take a moment, please. Make this about you right now. What are your go-to unhelpful ways of thinking when you get stressed, when you get anxious? What do you say to yourself? And you can take a moment and think about how you could shift that. And as I say here, this idea of referring to yourself in the third person introduces an interesting concept called psychological distancing. When you're caught with your feelings, you get lost sometimes. So what you have to do is literally take a breath and say, Mark, you can get through this. Mark, this feeling is impermanent. When I'm completely stressed out, because I am a believer in this idea of emotions are ephemeral and impermanent, which they are, I take a breath and I say, Mark, you've had this anxiety for 40 years of your life before you've gone to bed. You know it's going to go away in the morning. It's impermanent. And then all of a sudden, there's a sense of freedom. Another strategy is positive reappraisal. This is putting a different spin on it. So the self-talk is saying, you can get through this. It's impermanent. Take the high road. The reappraisal is saying, can I look at this from another lens? So for example, when your significant other or child is driving you out of your mind and you're saying to yourself, I hate being a parent, or I can't stand this online learning. Maybe you can say to yourself, my goodness, like a lot of people are struggling with this online learning. My goodness, my child has a whole new way of interacting with the world. What can I do to be supportive? Do you see how that puts another whole twist on it? So I'm going to encourage you over the next week to really take that breath. And when you notice yourself having that negative self-talk, try to switch it to positive self-talk, or try to reappraise it, look at it from another lens.